2.
The new day is dawning, let's greet it with singing, the hills and the mountains with merry tunes ringing. Hey, tooly, 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 toola, hey, tooly, 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 ho.
The new day is dawning, let's greet it with singing,
the hills and the mountains with merry tunes ringing, the hills and the mountains, hey, tooly, 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 ho. Hey, tooly, 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 toola, hey, tooly, 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 ho. Hey, tooly, 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 toola, hey, tooly, 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 ho.
Welcome, everyone, to this beautiful, lovely, sunny morning. I guess we were waiting for the summer, and Mother Nature said, yeah, let's do it. Okay, we're thankful for it. So, as I walk away, welcome to First Parish, Unitarian Universalist Canton. I am Felisa White, and I will be your worship associate for this morning. I am joined this morning by our co-ministers, the Reverend Dr. Clyde Grubbs and Reverend Dr. Michelle Walsh, as well as our ministerial intern, Elizabeth Foster. This community honors diversity and joyfully welcomes all who share the values and principles of our congregation. To all present, you are welcome here, whether you are a longtime member, a friend, or a first-time visitor. And you are welcome here in all your identities, experiences, beliefs, and relationships, including if you need to wiggle, fidget, walk around, or even dance. No, I won't do it. We also acknowledge that the building of our congregation resides on the traditional Ponkapog land of the Neponset Band of the Massasoit tribe, and we invite you to read our worship draft of a land and labor acknowledgement on the back of your order of service. We also warmly welcome those of you joining us in Zoom this morning, and we send you a virtual hug. If you're visiting us through Zoom, feel free to introduce yourself on the chat, and our Zoom associate will provide you with any information you might need. We are very happy you have chosen to worship with us today.
So you're going to notice somebody sitting up here. That is Reverend Mary Margaret Earl from the UU Urban Ministry. She is our guest speaker today. I am delighted to have the Urban Ministry here because I think most of you know I ran an urban youth ministry program through the UU Urban Ministry for almost 18 years. So it is near and dear to my heart in so many ways, and just delighted to have her here, and the Faith in Action will be donated to the UU Urban Ministry this month. And I'm going to read her bio. The Reverend Mary Margaret Earl has served as Executive Director and Senior Minister of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry for 9 years. That's tough. Not many of them last for 9 years. And you are among the best, dear one, okay? In this ministry, she strengthens connections between UUs and the Roxbury neighborhood where the UU Urban Ministry operates. She has served on the leadership team of Moral Movement Massachusetts, the Roxbury Cultural Network, and currently serves on the search committee for the new Roxbury Community College president. Prior to her arrival at the UU Urban Ministry, she spent 10 years at a faith-based nonprofit in Rhode Island serving the homeless community. She is past president of the board of the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless, recipient of the Heroes of Faith Award from the Rhode Island State Council of Churches for her interfaith work, and she received a Courage of Conscience Award from the Peace Abbey in Sherborn. She is a longtime vegan committed to standing up for non-human animals. So please, let's give her a warm welcome. And you see that candle there? We're going to start doing this in June, okay? Yesterday was the first day of June, Pride Month, and so every Sunday in June that we're here in the service, we're going to light a Pride candle, and you're going to see a unison reading related to Pride that we're all going to say together, Okay? So I invite you to turn to your order of service and the shared call to worship for our unison chalice lighting this morning. And then Elizabeth will be leading the unison pride candle lighting. This is written by Adrian Rich with an addition for me for the chalice lighting. All together. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. We light our chalice this morning in honor of the persistent resilience of the human spirit.
And we are also going to have a unison pride candle lighting this morning. This is a new tradition that Michelle has invented. So if you will read with me the words written in your order of service. We're going to light our pride candle with these words by Garth Brooks. When we're free to love anyone we choose, when this world's big enough for all different views, when we can all worship from our own kind of pew, then we shall be free. You can wave your pride flags if you like.
The doctrine of this congregation, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, with respect and understanding, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve our fellows and humankind, to the end that all souls shall grow together in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God by whatsoever name we worship. And our opening hymn is number 188 in your gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. You might know it by heart. You can practice that, but invite everybody to rise in body or spirit as you're willing and able for number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Time in our service when we lift our generosity of all of you, members and friends and visitors. Your pledges and gifts keep our doors open and our programs vibrant. If you are visiting us for the first time, we invite you to let the offering plate pass you by and consider yourselves our guest. Though we hope you do return and consider deepening your relationships with us. For those of you participating remotely, there will be the details in the Zoom chat as to how you can make a donation to First Parish. As a reminder, our Faith in Action is UUUM Urban Ministry.
Spirit of more So every path must cross again. Now I'm returning to my heart, back to the song that is our own. In a circle of friends, in a circle of sound, all our voices will blend when we touch common ground. In a circle of friends, in a circle of sound, all our voices will blend when we touch common
Our reading this morning, chosen by Reverend Mary Margaret Earl, is a reading from Cheryl Strade's Wilds. Cheryl Strade hiked 1,110 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail in a pilgrimage to heal her life's hurts, most especially the quick death of her 45-year-old mother to cancer when Cheryl was 21. She went ill-prepared and too heavily loaded, and quickly felt the pain of that. 2 small boots wrecking her feet, a too heavy pack leaving her hips bleeding and raw and her back bent, and still she walked. She claimed a cast-off hiking pole to steady her. She lightened her load, shedding what was not essential. Her legs grew stronger, and still it never got easy, not even to the end. She wrote of the second week in her journey. It was day 1 of week 2, officially summer, the last week of June, and I was not only in a different season now, but in a different country too, ascending higher into the South Sierra wilderness. In the 40 miles between Kennedy Meadows and Trail Pass, I'd climb from an elevation of just over 6,100 feet to nearly 11,000. Even in the heat of the first afternoon back on the trail, I could feel an edge of cool in the air that would no doubt envelop me at night. There was no question that I was in the Sierra now, Muir's beloved range of light. I walked beneath great dark trees that put the smaller plants beneath in almost complete shadow, and past wide grassy meadows of wildflowers. I scrambled over snow-melt streams by stepping from one unsteady rock to another, aided by my ski pole. At foot speed, the Sierra Nevada seemed just barely surmountable. I could always take another step. It was only when I rounded a bend and glimpsed the white peaks ahead that I doubted my abilities. Only when I thought how far I had yet to go that I lost faith that I would get there.
So we're going to do a very light, quick meditation for time. So just invite you just to find a comfortable way to sit in your pew. Bring your attention to your breath. Notice how it can bring some calm, connection to different parts of your body. Shrug your shoulders up, drop them down, roll your neck. Just release tension as best as you can. Just allow the muscles of your face to soften and relax. And if you want to, you can invite a half smile to come to your lips as we invite our bell to sound 3 times. God of many names and no names, many genders and no gender, and whom we know as a precious and mysterious spirit of life and love that moves in us and among us and out into our larger world, bringing our faith values out into the larger world. We are so grateful this morning for the beauty of the weather, the coming of spring and summer, so clearly evident today and yesterday. We are grateful for the public witness that this congregation supported on its lawn yesterday. A wonderful series of powerful speakers, deeply moving speakers, and a great performance. It was good to be together and celebrate Pride Month. It's good to be in partnership in this community. And in this we express gratitude for everyone who held us in their thoughts that day and who were also on the ground providing support. This congregation is a faith in action. We hold in our thoughts and prayers all among us who are struggling in ways known and unknown, healing, and working through, just working through, managing the pain that sometimes is chronic. We see you, we support you, we hold you in our care, not just in our thoughts, but with our actions. And we hold in our prayer and in our actions all the strains and struggles of the larger world, including our neighbors in Boston, the work of the urban ministry against structural racism and economic injustice, and violence, all the ways in which violence still comes in our world. We vow to work towards peace. We lift up ourselves, working towards peace among us and peace in our larger world. And we know that peace begins at home, always, in our practices with one another. May we hold these larger values and the richness and the importance of our faith tradition and our presence here on this site in Canton forever. Blessed be. Amen.
Above earth's
Good morning. It is lovely to be back in Canton for my first time in quite a few years. I think it must be 7 or 8 years since I have been here, and so I was delighted that my dear colleague, the Reverend Dr. Michelle Walsh, invited me to be here. It's lovely to be with my colleagues, the Reverend Dr. Clyde Grubbs and the Reverend Dr. Michelle Walsh, both of whom are well known in our movement for their commitments to social justice. And it's an honor to worship with them, an honor to be in a congregation so wise as to minister with them. And Reverend Michelle, as she mentioned, ministered for many, many years before she was officially a minister at the UUUM Urban Ministry. And her legacy really does continue to show itself in the work that we do. One of our partners, Colin Knight, who's the founder of Live Like a Local Tour, who we're working with closely in our youth program, was mentored by Reverend Michelle and still speaks of her as very important in his own journey. So it's really good to be here to talk about the urban ministry. Yeah, he loves you. So this morning, I wanted to begin with a question. How is your heart? I mean, how are you? How is your heart this morning in the midst of hard news and bad news and all the challenges of climate change and political tensions and all of it? How is your heart? How is your heart that is called, has always been called, to respond to a world that is in need of love and justice? How are you? And how is your heart? And I lift this up as we deepen our worship together this morning. And I'm going to begin with a trip that I took last summer when I passed through Auburn, New York, which is a stone's throw from my hometown in upstate. In the stunning quiet and shimmer of the Finger Lakes near Lake Cayuga's shores, I spotted a sign on Route 34 for the Harriet Tubman House. Intrigued, I stopped by. Of course, I knew Harriet Tubman, called the Moses of her people, the woman who had claimed her freedom from enslavement and led others through the dark by the light of the North Star to freedom too. I remembered her image in children's books, but not much else, and certainly not that she had once lived so near my childhood places. Harriet, born Araminta Ross on the eastern shore of the slave state of Maryland, had deep ties in Boston. She visited this region many times, building a network of support and friendship that sustained her efforts to lead others to freedom. And she retired to Auburn on land from her friend William Seward, who was Lincoln's Secretary of State and an Auburn son. The AME Zion Church bought her home and is now restoring it as a landmark. And the day that I visited, an AME pastor led a tour of the property, sharing the contours of Tubman's life 110 years after she had died there. A half hour of stories inspired me to learn more, and so I read 2 biographies and I Googled details endlessly. The details of her life made the madness of enslavement more vivid and real. There were stories like how she was rented out as a 5-year-old child to tend to a white newborn on another plantation and was beaten if the baby awakened and cried in the night. How she, as a small child, sneaked a sugar cube and had to hide in a pig pen for days to avoid the violence that awaited her as punishment. And of the brain injury she suffered when an enslaver hurled a metal weight at another enslaved person and struck her in the head instead. Some have theorized that the vision she had of God calling her to her daring work resulted from that injury. and how Harriet, as she renamed herself, rose out of this insane system and claimed her freedom, left her family, a beloved husband, all that she knew, to arrive in Philadelphia. She walked a long way to the city of freedom. And yet, more than that, what grabs hold is this: how Harriet, 5 feet tall, unable to read or to write, with few resources, by grit and will and savvy, risked recapture and re-enslavement and death again and again in order to lead others to freedom. By foot and by night, she made this dangerous, cold, terrifying journey again and again and again. The way was long, but Harriet Tubman walked it about 15 times and led more than 70 others to freedom too. In the book Harriet Tubman, The Road to Freedom, author Catherine Clinton wrote this, quote, "Harriet Tubman had been a liberator, a woman who stood up to the slave power, and a warrior whose actions spoke louder than words. She seized the road to freedom not just for herself, but also for her family and others during her decade-long association with the Underground Railroad. This bravery earned her a fierce reputation. She was on the slaveholders' most wanted list with a reportedly steep price on her head. Posters with a description of Moses, as she was called, were plastered through the Upper South until the Civil War broke out," end quote. Harriet Tubman's personal courage and stamina captivates, not only because of her unusual courage before the war, or even her work to end enslavement as a spy for the North during the war, but that her work never ended. After the war, she worked until her death in Auburn to care and advocate for African Americans who were aging in poverty. She never stopped confronting racial oppression. The way was long, and she kept to it. The way is still long, and we are called to keep to it. Nearly 160 years after the end of the Civil War, Greater Boston remains mired in the legacy of enslavement and racism and segregation. Graduation rates, incarceration rates, wealth and health measures all remain shaped by them. Consider infant mortality. This past fall, the Boston Public Health Commission published the Maternal and Infant Health Report. In Boston, Black residents experienced the highest rates of infant mortality, preterm births, and low birth weight. The rate of infant mortality among Black infants in Boston is more than 3 times the rate for white infants. Consider housing. According to the Boston Indicators Project, 66% of Boston residents are renters, double the rate of white residents. That means that Black residents are vulnerable to spiraling rent increases and then displacement and cannot build the wealth that is earned through home ownership. Consider the racial wealth gap. According again to the Indicators Project, racial wealth disparities have grown and not lessened over the past 30 years. Quote, "In the United States, economic inequity is inextricably connected to growing racial inequity. By 2019, white wealth was almost 9 times as high as Black wealth." And consider death. The mortality gap remains a stark reminder of racism, with a 23-year life expectancy difference between Roxbury residents and those in White Back Bay just 1 mile away. Racism's stamp marks the lives of African Americans from birth through death and at every point in between. It is these realities that drives the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry's mission to dismantle racism and white supremacy culture and to envision a greater Boston where all its residents shape the present and the future. And so we continue to operate programs like our longtime domestic violence shelter, and we also reimagine our work for justice. We're expanding our after-school program to nurture the next generation of BIPOC leaders and creating career exploration opportunities so that young people can choose their own paths forward. We created our Community Conversations series of webinars to highlight the history and impact of racism this past season, shining a light on housing policy in Boston. We expanded our Roxbury Tours program, celebrating the community's richness and history and pushing back on some of the traditional narratives about Roxbury. And we're nearing completion of the full restoration of our historic meeting house as a place to serve and to celebrate Roxbury. Unitarian Universalists from our 46 member congregations like Canton have helped us in these changes, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished with the support of our member congregations. And there is so much work left to do. Families in our neighborhood are getting pushed out daily by gentrification. Young people cannot get the opportunities that they need and that they deserve. Brilliant young people who flourished in our after-school program and who graduated from college still can't find the jobs that they want. The way is long. I call again on our words from the reading that we heard from Cheryl Strayed, quote, "At foot speed, the Sierra Nevada seemed just barely surmountable. I could always take another step. It was only when I rounded a bend and glimpsed the white peaks ahead that I doubted my abilities. Only when I thought of how far I had yet to go that I lost faith that I would get there." What we need is to take another step, and then another, and another. In our work at the UU Urban Ministry and in the work that we all do for justice individually, collectively, we need to take another step. We need to keep walking forward even when it's daunting and steep and hard. And so I return to this question. How are you? And how is your heart? What do you need to keep pressing forward for justice? How are you doing on the journey, on the long way? This morning, I'm going to invite you to honor what you need to keep on your path for justice in whatever way that you feel called, to fight against climate change, for GLBTQ rights, to shelter immigrants, or to work for racial justice. Sometimes we need community. Harriet Tubman needed it. She was sometimes alone in her underground rescues, but she was also encouraged and sustained by a web of like-minded abolitionists. In them, she found encouragement and support. The Underground Railroad was possible only because people committed to change worked together to form an unbroken line from enslavement to freedom. Sometimes we need to be part of a group that is working together in common goals to encourage one another forward. Sometimes we need community. Sometimes we need silence and to nurture our inner spiritual lives, to put down our cell phones and the pinging and the buzz and the dizzying array of headlines and breathe and connect with that which is bigger than we are. Sometimes we need to nurture the spiritual. Sometimes we need to remember that we are enough, that what we offer, our gifts, our talents, are fully sufficient for the call. Harriet could not read or write. She had few material resources, but she was smart and cunning and had charisma. She used her gifts. What gifts do we bring to the change that we seek? Artist, activist, builder, speaker, organizer, dancer, listener? Sometimes we need to remember that we are enough. And so this morning, I'm going to invite you forward for a communion for the activist heart. I'm going to invite you to take a breath in and ground yourself in what you need to keep going forward. You may need community or spiritual nurturing or grounding and confidence. So I'm going to invite forward our basket holders. So I'm going to invite you to, in a moment, when you hear the music start, to come down through the aisle on the right, and you're going to select something out of one of 3 baskets, and then you're going to go back to your seat this way. And if you would prefer not to come forward, raise your hand. When we're doing this, and my colleague Annie will bring around a little tray of items for you. I invite you to come forward if what you need is community to keep on the journey, to come forward and select a piece of the bark of a tree. No tree was harmed in the collecting of this bark. Science tells us that trees communicate below the surface. They form a community. So if what you need on the long way is community, I invite you to select a piece of tree bark. All right. If what you need is to nurture your spiritual life and to quiet things down, I invite you to come forward and to take a candle. And if what you need is to remember that you are enough, I invite you to come forward and take a stone to remember to be grounded in that confidence. That's right. Come, whoever you are. Come and honor what you need.
For everyone who participated who did not hear us say this, may your heart be renewed.
The way is long, and we must keep going, even when it's muddy and steep and rock-strewn, and when we're tired. The way is long, and we must keep going because the world needs us to. Change takes time and faithfulness. At foot speed, we can always take another step. Amen, and may it be so.
Let us join in the closing hymn, number 168, One More Step. One more step. For the hymnal. Let us join in the shared benediction. Let us join in the shared benediction. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And join in the chalice extinguishing unison. We extinguish this flame, but not the flame of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together.